This is also why Gaston, Dr. Cornu, you was a former surgeon, still is a surgeon, has kind of went in depth trying to really understand what is going on. He's also prepared his entire life almost for this moment for the past few years. And here we are. I think it would be more than appropriate for him to come up and speak his heart and his mind.
So my name is Gaston Cornu Labat. I'm a medical doctor. I'm originally from Argentina. I started as a surgeon. I specialized in hepatobiliary and pancreatic surgery. Today, I'm kind of nowhere, hard to find unless you need me. And I practice holistic and integrative medicine in a very, very unconventional way. And we mentioned several times healing sciences. But the sign and the reason why we're here is to heal science. And that's what our sign says. Heal science, not healing sciences. So what's wrong with science? So, in my understanding, what got the ball rolling to this gathering was some people that publicly, with some recognition behind their names, publicly expressed their disagreement with the nomination of Robert Kennedy as the Secretary for Health. And they voiced their opinion, their understanding of reality. And, well, there's a bunch of other people that think differently. So, reality, it's a fantastic word to start this presentation because it's a fascinating word. And if I ask any of you, what's reality? Most likely gonna be, right there, reality. It seems obvious. However, if we take a deep dive to the word reality, well, elements start showing up behind that word. We start hearing about the real. We start hearing about perceptions. We start hearing about the filters to that perception. We hear about paradigms, myths, culture. We hear about imagery. All those elements that are behind the apparently obvious word reality start making that obvious to blur. And as we go deep into the meaning of that word, we start realizing that reality for each one of us is as unique in all its details as each one of us is unique. So, when somebody bases their opinion on reality, we have to listen very carefully, but be aware of all the layers that are behind that perception of reality. And there's an interesting phenomenon to the uniqueness of each one of our realities, is that there's a lot of common ground, a tremendous amount of common ground in that perception of reality. And there's a few points of disagreement. Very few. And when we consider the whole picture, we realize that the great majority of our perception of reality is common ground with everybody else. We're all looking for the same. We're all concerned about peace of mind. We're all concerned about being acknowledged, about feeding ourselves, about being safe, about being cared. And the points of disagreement are a few, very few. Yet they come to the forefront. So as I move forward with these, let's keep in mind that big picture, that in the majority of our perception of reality, we have commonality and we agree. So to go deeper into the story and what I want to share with you, I'm going to use my story as a skeleton, as the axis of this. And what I'm sharing about my story starts somewhere in 1991 when I graduated from medical school. I was 23 years old. I got finished with medical school and I started my other part of the education. And I was very happy. I got married. I had a wonderful companion. And the next 10 years went into me specializing and learning everything there was to be known about the human condition. And fast forwarding to 10 years later, 2001, I have 3 kids. I have a wonderful wife. I have a specialty in surgery. I have a further specialty in hepatobiliary and pancreatic surgery. I know how to do a lot of very complex things. And I also had a very early midlife crisis. A deep, deep crisis. The details are insignificant, but the point is I had hit a point in my life where there was incongruence. And I had followed the script. I had done everything I was supposed to do. And I had done it well. And I had all these accomplishments. But I was in a deep crisis and a deep incongruence I could not make sense of. And I locked myself up and I went within and I chewed on it and I chewed on it. And with everything I knew about life, about the experience of being human, I couldn't answer the incongruence I was facing. So finally, I came to a realization that years later I found in a quote from Einstein, is that we can't resolve a problem with the frame of mind that created it in the first place. So I had to suddenly go out and start relearning what it is to be human. And there was a little event that was not little and marked me deeply. And I'm still learning from it because where I lived, this was in Buenos Aires. I was on an apartment that was right in front of a large avenue in downtown Buenos Aires. It's about 7 or 8 lanes, crazy Latino Argentinian traffic, very aggressive, and very, very busy avenue. And one night I was going out, and there's a lot of poor people in Buenos Aires, a lot of little kids that are asking for money and stuff. And these 2 little kids were crossing the avenue. And one of the kids got run over by a car. And I was there and I saw it. And it was a kind of a low-speed side hit. And I went to the kids' aid and somebody called an ambulance. And in the process of going there, something very strange happened to me. And strange as a medical doctor. I felt the pain and the fear of that kid. I didn't read it in his body language. I didn't assume it because he was supposed to be in pain and fear. I felt it. And that feeling inside me was a completely new experience. I wasn't supposed to feel. I'm a technician that takes care, that fixes things. I don't feel, I don't transfer, but I felt it. And that was a magical moment in my life that opened a door that I'm still walking through and still exploring. Because in my resolution of my crisis and in my digging into what it is to be human, I started finding a lot of layers that I had not been taught, that had not been explained to me. And discoveries and the progress in life, it's usually an extrapolation of an inward experience. So my inward experience and my discovery of myself, I started taking it with my patients, because at that time, life threw me a curve one, and I was coming from a big academic, significant career, budding, with research and publications and big hospitals with complex surgeries. And I end up in surgical practice in western Nebraska, in the Panhandle, in a very small town. And this very small town was making me be a rural surgeon. And this was one of the most wonderful experiences in my life. Completely different from what I had planned, but deeply wonderful. And there's a lot of stories of those years in Nebraska, but there's a few things that are significant here. Is when I started seeing patients, I was sent livers, I was sent stomachs, I was sent things for intervention, but I started talking to the people and mainly listening. And when I started listening and then asking questions for more to be listened to, then some patterns started emerging. And I started connecting dots. And very interesting things came out from that. Because one of the first questions I had, and this was coming from before because I had a lot of experience with complex surgeries and with ICU care, and I could not quite figure out the source of healing. Where is it coming from? Is it me? Is it me that's giving the healing to the other? I'm very good at what I do, and I do pretty much always the same for any given situation, but not everybody heals. So is it me? Am I making a mistake? No, I'm doing the same. So the element is coming, that healing process is coming from somewhere else. It's not mine. It's not mine to give. So I started realizing healing comes from within. So that was a big point in the equation. There was another very significant pattern that emerged in those initial years of practice, particularly as a surgeon, where people were sent to me. And that was this attitude that, for me, the best way to describe it is with this phrase: "Doctor, my body's not working well. Here are the keys to my body. Please fix it and point me when it's done." So the more I saw this pattern, the more it pulled my attention. And I saw detachment. And I saw a complete non-involvement, passive observer of the individual that was giving me all the power to do something I cannot do, because the healing is from within. So there was something wrong in the equation. I'm trying to figure it out and dig into why. Why that detachment? So the more I dug into all these, the more I connected with my patients, the more I started acknowledging the individual that was carrying that diseased liver, the better results I started getting. And something, I was seeing the results, and to understand the way it played out to me, all this is happening in isolation because I'm in the middle of rural Nebraska. I rarely see that the closest group of peers was about 200 miles away. So I was seeing excellent results, to the point that half the patients that were sent to me, so 5 out of 10, were going back home without intervention and getting better. So fascinating with all these, and very, very naive. I couldn't make sense, I couldn't understand, I couldn't comprehend the reaction I was getting from the establisher. Because I was getting a reaction. I was getting a pushback. It took me a long time to recognize it. And I could not understand why. So the story continued, and I continued with my digging of the depths of the experience of being human and the sources of disease and health and healing, and started bringing every facet of the human experience together, because everything that I looked at, that I considered was significant in that individual that was coming with a manifestation. And the reactions kept mounting. And I couldn't make sense of it because people were getting better. So fast forward now, 10 years later, so from 2001 to 2011, I'm in Eastern Washington, another rural hostel, where we had started the construction of a model of an integrative hospital, integrative medicine in a hospital, a little rural hospital in Eastern Washington. It was a perfect place to start it, but that required a degree of seriousness and compromise and maturity that wasn't present. So the administration wanted this to happen, but all the elements were not there, so they were being called out. And the petty little self-interests that were coming to play and were at the root of all the problems that needed to be fixed for us to be able to move into a model of integrative medicine were making a lot of noise. I remember very well at that time, I was given a choice. This was with the group I was working with outside of the hospital, and the choice was, okay, so this is norm, this is what's happening in the human condition. So you have a choice. You can walk away, find a job somewhere else, or we can make this blow up and take it all the way. And I chose to stay and to make it blow up, and I took it all the way. And when I insisted on the petty, little, stupid things that were mounting up to a very toxic administration and a very toxic environment where we were supposed to be given health, suddenly, well, he seems to be not acting as his normal self. Yeah, some of us here have heard about the disruptive physician policy, right? And all the apparatus that it's built around that. So seeing what was coming, I took all the problems I had been putting together and putting in evidence, and there was a little event that pushed things to the limit that showed how poor the administration and the regulation of the hospital was. So I took all this to the Department of Health. Nobody took it there. I took it. And I said, this place is screwed up. And they're saying that I'm not acting normal. Guess what happened? I got under investigation. So, again, I took it all the way. And it's for another time. But that was a hell of a battle. And just to summarize, when they had to return my license unscathed, and they haven't touched me since, the attorney for the Department of Health said, we don't know what to do. We never had a case like this. Because there is a modus operandi for corruption. And corruption and petty self-interest and lies and twisting and distortion, this is what I found everywhere, at every level. And this is what I called out. And I followed a methodology to do this. And they didn't know how to handle it. And in the end, they had to leave me alone. And everything was pushed under the rug because I didn't have enough money to bring attorneys to sue everybody, because everybody needed to be sued at that point. The corruption was so ubiquitous, unfortunately, in the system. So the experience was what it was, and this continued, and my life has continued in my growth in the understanding of the human experience to lead me to where I am today. But there was a question that was nagging me tremendously, and it kept nagging me, and it keeps driving me. Why? 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 Why corruption? What is it? What is it that makes us so prone to disregard reality, to lie and to twist and to hide and to simulate? And why cannot we be genuine? Why cannot we embrace when we don't know? Why? So I came to the realization that there is two ways in which we engage reality. I'm going to pull my notes because I don't want to miss any detail on this. The words are important. So either we embrace with humbleness the whole experience, even the things we don't know about, but we feel. And we welcome uncertainty as part of life. And we welcome the unknown and acknowledge all that is. And love and respect. And we look forward to learning and discovering, and we're not ashamed to admit we're naked and we don't know. And we're okay with it. That is one way in which we can engage life. The other one, which happens to be a lot more prevalent, is we're afraid. We are in need. We selfishly center in those needs. And we don't care about the other. And we go about it as every man for himself. And out of fear, out of need, and out of pain, we're scared of uncertainty. That's the unavoidable aspect of life that scares us. So we build compartments. We organize the experience in little boxes that we try to use to predict life and to bring down uncertainty. And so we come up with biology. And then we come up with psychology, because biology cannot explain the intangible thought. And then we come up with spirituality, because not even psychology can explain that more intangible idea of the divine. And then we go about life and description of the experience of being human as three compartments. So I end up being three bags, all separate, disconnected from each other, experiencing the same space-time. That didn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense at all. But we grab to that model of matter can only affect matter, because it's one of the compartments, and that compartment gives me security and takes away that sense of uncertainty. And we build personas around these compartments. And we master one of them, and then we build our persona but around that little mastery of that particular compartment we have. And we don't want to show that we don't know. We don't want to show our nakedness. We're afraid, we're ashamed of it. So we hide. And when anything is coming that may show that we don't know, that we're lacking, that we're going on our little deluded understanding of reality, we get scared. So we choose to shoot the messenger, because we cannot handle the message. And this goes even further, because these areas that we don't want to address about ourselves, and we find echo in many others that don't want to address it either. So we come to collective agreements about the things that we don't want to talk about. We build cosmologies around this compartmentalization. We refuse to acknowledge that we don't know and choose not to grow. We choose to hide. We choose to simulate and defend those personas as if it was us, as if they were the absolute representation of who we really are. We're scared of a cosmos where God is all that is, of admitting we're here to experience everything, the good, the bad, the high and the low, the tough and the easy. We want the good and reject the bad. We want comfort and try to run away from discomfort. So we build a mechanical, predictable cosmology where compartments fit And if we run into trouble, if we are facing a consequence of our action that we do not know how to solve, then we look for somebody to save us. Instead of raising ourselves to the level we need to be to address the consequence of our actions, we try to find somebody that'll fix it for us. And then we come to, doctor, here are the keys to my body. Please fix it, they'll call me when I'm done. And the other side of the coin of that detachment is the drunkenness of us as medical practitioners, because we like the power that we're giving and we believe it. So we take it. Said, yeah, Mr. Smith, I'm going to fix you. I know how to fix you. Yeah, well, I'll have my practice insurance just in case, but I'll fix you. And if you question me, I'll convince you that this is the way. When I walked out of medical school, I walked out happy that I had the whole pie of disease and killing. Just 10 years later, I figured out I had a portion of it. I didn't have the whole pie of the experience. I knew very little. And this is not after medical school, this is after 10 years of postgraduate education. I knew very little about the experience of being human. And I'm not afraid to say it. So, what my experience showed me is that the moment somebody comes to disrupt, somebody comes to show a different message that threatens that little compartmentalized world we have built, we shoot the messenger because we can't tolerate the message. And I think most of the people that are present here can relate to that. Have experienced being short because we are daring to say something different. So science is built as a method to question assumptions and discover new paradigms that explain better what we observe. And once an explanation takes hold and starts making sense, then the experts come in. Then the little mastery of that little compartment is built. And then the whole existence of those individuals is built around that persona. And if someone comes with something different, well, that doesn't threaten what we know. That threatens who we think we are. So we shoot the messenger. So today in medicine, this compartmentalization construct, where we hide our selfishness and our miseries and our shortcomings, and we relish in our little mastery, we have allowed a gross conflict of interest to dominate the field. So the pharmaceutical and the biotechnical industry dominate our field completely. But the business model is not in health. The business model is in disease. That's where the money is. So what are we doing? Are we doing healthcare? No, we're doing disease management. Everything we see today is it's built around this fear of uncertainty, this need to hide behind our little personas, and we call this science. And we kill, figuratively or literally, anyone that steps forward with disruption. In the name of science, we do it. The last 5 years, this modeling, this collective construct based on fear has come to a head with the most grotesque, the biggest lie, the biggest fraud, the biggest harm that humanity has seen in its known history. In 2001, 9/11 was a huge wake-up call, and the Twin Towers came down. Now what did we do as a collective? Out of fear, we played dumb. We simulated and refused to take responsibility, and we looked the other way. But nothing is free. That which we acquiesce to yesterday comes back today 100-fold. And this is what we have seen in the last 5 years. So if we are to continue with this simulation, things are going to get down from here. No other way. Or are we going to start being genuine and humble and responsible and admitting we don't know and start preparing ourselves and start revising our assumptions and welcoming teachings from everywhere and listening and connecting? The human experience in health and disease is not a liver or a heart or a lung. It's the whole of the experience, all of it. The parts we like and the parts we don't. The current model of compartmentalization, of duality, of matter can only affect matter. And the whole nonsense will build up around that theoretical construct. It's done. It's over. The last 5 years have been so grotesque that now it's evident that the emperor has no clothes. And that system is done. The market is shifting. People are starting to perceive. But we're not ready yet. We're very green. We need to prepare ourselves. We need to start really implementing what Einstein said when he said, you can't resolve a problem with the same frame of mind that created it in the first place. We need to expand our understanding of reality, of the real. We need to start being genuine. And what I'm saying here is not so much for the crowds that have been following and embracing the official narrative. What I'm saying here is for us, for the activists, for the ones opposing. We are in the middle of the Third World War. There are no armies except ourselves. Because now there is an elite that is against the human population. So we are the army. And there is not a single army that goes into battle without preparing themselves. What are we doing to prepare ourselves? Except taking what we think we know about reality and applying it over and over again. We need to be prepared. And I'm going to take this one step further to state something very, very significant, and that is not being said. We have been naming the enemies over and over. We have been listing all the things that are being done wrong, but we're missing the ball. The biggest enemy we're facing is the enemy within. And this is where we need to work. And this is our way out of this crisis. So thank you very much. And if there's any questions, I'll be glad to entertain them.